but they want a word from the Lord, how to get up out of the box. I've been in the valley, I've been in the box long enough, but I want to know how to get up and get out. It's good to talk about the blessing plans, but people need to know how to come up out of their sins, and people need to know that God is a loving God and a forgiving God and a merciful God. God can do anything but fail. And tonight, I wanted to come back to my city, and I wanted to come back to the old school, the schoolhouse where I went to school at, the old high school. I'm sitting on the steps of which is called the old high school steps, the front entrance of the school. And basically I wanted just to come back here because to let the people know that the Bible said God has no respect of person. He reigns on the just as well as the unjust. And I tell people all the time, it doesn't matter where you come from, You might have been raised up on the other side of the tracks or, or whatever. God has no respect of person. I can remember, in this city, this is where I got my start. As a little boy, I was told, that, hey, you ain't gonna never be nothing, boy, you're gonna be like your daddy, because my dad, at the age of 5, my dad walked out of my life. I was just like Mephibosheth. I thought about Mephibosheth. The Bible said he was 5 years old when his nurse dropped him. And when his nurse dropped him, it lamed him for life. And the Bible goes on to say that, it was somebody that was dear to Mephibosheth. She was his caretaker, and she was seeing about Mephibosheth. And she dropped him. And, and I can imagine, Mephibosheth, had his confidence in this nurse, and one day she dropped him, and and I can relate to Mephibosheth's story. One day my father dropped me at an early age, and my mom was left to raise 5 kids, on her own. There was not a man in the house. It was just my mom, and my mom had to be the mother and the father. But one thing I can admonish, and one thing I liked about my mom, she always had godly principles. She believed in worshiping and serving God, and I can remember several times, even growing up in a godly home, Mom believed in going to church. She didn't play this way. You do what you want to do. She would always tell us, my rules, and you're gonna do what I tell you to do. But make a long story short, this is the city where I got my start. I can remember, sitting on the porch at my mom, in the front yard at my mom's house, and I thought about Isaiah when Isaiah said, Lord, if you need somebody to go and declare your word, he said, send me. And he said, I'll go. He said, but first you got to clean me up. And I was just like Isaiah, and I was simply saying, God, I'm willing to go. And I began to look out in my community, and I began to see things going on, nothing productive for our young people to do, and young folks getting in trouble and doing every and anything, and I began to tell God, I said, Lord, if you send me, I'll go, and I'll bridge that gap, and I'll work with our young people, and I started a youth program here in Elba, started working with young people, pulling kids off the streets, and we started playing basketball, and the Lord gave me an idea to draw the young people. He said, start a basketball team, and at that time I began to start a basketball team working with the young people, and kids started coming out of the woodwork, and I was still in school. I was in the 11th grade, I believe. It was the 11th grade back in 1994 when I started the Elba Youth Training Center here in Elba. Kids were coming every time, in the afternoon. I would do things with the youth, and, because our youth needed something positive to do, because in the city here, there's really nothing productive for young people to do, It's common for a child to get out on the street corners and sell drugs because that's the only thing they see, And I tell people all the time, if a child doesn't